Okay, hello everybody from around the world, wherever you may be joining us today. Welcome to the second session of our Peacesharing Forum on transforming education for the future. My name is Tony Devine. I'm the Vice President of Education with Global Peace Foundation, and I'm greatly honored to be your moderator for this session here today. The global pandemic has underscored the need for readiness in online access, quality of education, and well-being of students and teachers. We have a wonderful, distinguished panel from around the world who will explore with us today new trends, ideas, policies, innovations that are underway to prepare students to be successful in all aspects of their life, and where they have the agency to contribute to the creation of flourishing societies and to be successful in the modern workforce. So before I introduce our panel, we would like to first ask all of you to join us in our opening poll of our session here today. Okay, thank you very much for doing our poll here today. We leave it up for a little bit more. So in the chat, we've posted a link to the bios of our wonderful panelists, and we will also be posting helpful links to helpful resources that might be helpful to you in the work you're doing in classrooms, in education, generally speaking. We will start the first part of our webinar here today, our session, with short opening 4-minute remarks from each of our wonderful panelists. So I'd like to begin by introducing Lynn Paine. She is a professor at the Department of Teacher Education and Associate Dean of International Studies in Education at the College of Education in Michigan State University. So welcome, Lynn.
Thank you so much. And thank you for this opportunity to join this very exciting forum and to have a chance to speak briefly about my vision and the work of the OECD as we think about transforming education for the future, and particularly what that means for teaching. So I would argue that transforming education for the future, as I think Tony's introduction suggests, means we have to put students and their learning and their growth and their agency at the center. It requires us to think about what students need to learn for the future, and for a future that, as the OECD argues, is volatile, is uncertain, is complex, and is ambiguous. It is not the future that any of us can know. And so helping students prepare for a world that is unknown, but has significant consequences for all of us, means that we have to reimagine learning. And to do that, we have to actually reimagine teaching and the work of teachers and what teachers need. So the OECD has been working since 2015 with a diverse group of stakeholders, youth and teachers and education leaders, government people, NGOs, foundations, university people, researchers, to try to bring people together to imagine what students need for this kind of future-oriented world, and therefore what future-oriented learning is like. I don't want to speak about that learning because as the OECD has been discussing this, it's become very clear that to imagine transforming education for the future, we have to actually think about and reimagine teaching. And so in the Education 2030 project, in that work, there is an effort going on right now that I am part of, and many of us are part of, that is trying to reconceptualize the future of teaching. And we are doing that as we think about what we might call a teaching compass. What compass can support teachers, guiding them, not in a prescriptive way, but helping them imagine where they go and what they need to support this future-oriented learning for students. That teaching compass imagines a changing role for teachers, from teachers as transmitters of knowledge to teachers as designers of learning and learning environments. It means transforming what we think teachers need to bring or draw on, and what they need to know, what skills they need, values and attitudes. We certainly know that teachers need to understand their subject matter, but that is clearly not enough if we want students to have the robust and dynamic and flexible understandings they need to continue to invent and construct their lives. And that means teachers need to bring creativity, inventiveness, empathy. They need collaboration with others, with other teachers, with children, and with communities. And they need safety and support, and they need to be able to create supportive environments. It means teachers have to be risk takers. They have to be willing to face and approach uncertainty in their own learning and to model that for students. It means that they have to be instructional designers who can ask powerful generative questions, and they have to be able to build relationships of trust with students, with their peers, with communities. This is a vision of teachers as constructors of learning environments who enact learning environments for transformative learning for all students, not just some. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Lynn. I mean, that's an exciting vision for being a teacher, right? In the 21st century. I think if that's the vision, I think we can really unlock the great creativity of our teachers and welcome many new to the profession as well. Thank you, Lynn. So let's go to Lasse Leponiemi. He's the executive director and co-founder of 100 Ed in Finland. So Lasse, we welcome your opening remarks here today.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you, Professor Paine, for pointing out very important factors in developing our teacher training and the ways how students can then eventually learn. So 100 is a Finnish not-for-profit organization, and we identify impactful and scalable education innovations worldwide. We have been doing this work since 2015, and by the date, we have been going through a little bit more than 5,000 education innovations around the world. And if we think how education systems are transforming, we have to understand that they are always very contextual and political systems when they are changing and reforming themselves. And like Professor Paine was pointing out, that we have to be allowing our teachers to experiment and try new solutions and practices as a part of their profession. That is something that we are clearly seeing when we are investigating and identifying these innovations around the world. So we need to have experimental culture, which allows us to try out new ideas as a part of our education systems and our school practices. And based on those, innovations can be then born and can be scaled to different locations. And while these innovations are being scaled, we have to always keep in our mind that everything should start with the child in a center. So the mission of 100 is to help every child flourish, no matter what happens in life. And therefore, we see that by identifying these impactful and scalable solutions, we are able to bring in positive change in the form of these solutions and practices, which can then eventually take the education systems and the ways how we are providing these educational experiences for our students in a better direction. And if we are looking at what kind of education innovators are mostly being featured in our research collections at the moment, most of those are not-for-profit organizations. They are teacher and educator-led practices which have been invented as a part of the daily demands of the work. And what we are hoping is that we are able to put a spotlight on these innovators and help them to be scaled to further locations so that we can really transform the education towards the better direction globally and allow the education systems to be adapting to the future. As it was mentioned, we don't know yet what kind of challenges and demands there are ahead of us. And I think the year of COVID pandemic has been a good example of that, how multiple different countries and educational systems have been taking huge leaps towards hybrid and remote learning methods, which then can eventually maybe even help students learning in a remote and rural areas around the world. But there is a lot of things to do before that. So let's begin the discussion soon.
Great, Lasse, thank you so much for this really good work of 100 Ed for, accumulating and bringing together these great innovations. There's great stuff going on by teachers from all over the world. So this is a great service to this sector, right, that you have actually accumulated those and others can learn from them. So really appreciate that. So let's go to Kenya next. To my good friend, Alfred Indimuli Kahi. Alfred is the president and national chairman of Kenya Secondary School Heads Association, connects with thousands of school principals around Kenya. So Alfred, welcome to our session and we welcome your remarks.
Thank you very much, Tony. Thank you for inviting me to this session. What I would want to say is with the pandemic coming in, there are a lot of things that as a country, Kenya, we needed to look at. Basically, we need to look at how the basic education was impacted with the COVID-19 challenge. We look at the opportunities that they are in and what we can do about them. Basically, we need to look at the policies that were there before that are now not able to work with the kind of education delivery that we need to do at the moment. So policy is key. Then we look at the operational challenges. Here we are looking at pedagogy, the normal teaching chalk and work in front of a student cannot work now and could not work when the schools were not opened. So it meant that we needed to go online. The infrastructure is another challenge that needs to be addressed as at yesterday, so that even with the students still in school, this can still be looked at. ICT skills, the preparation of the teachers to prepare ICT content, the preparation of the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development to be able to continue providing the teaching and learning processes, even when the students are out of class. We look at the social aspect. When there are no students in school, the classes were empty, but learning needs to continue. This is something that requires our preparation, and we were not ready for it. We look at the institutional challenges. Schools in Kenya and a majority across many countries in Africa, as we were discussing, being the president of the African Confederation, with no students in class, it provided a challenge on how do we get to the students. And this required, therefore, that the infrastructure for ICT connectivity must be improved. Challenges in the costs, issues of do we have to put food on the table for a family, or do we have to pay for internet connectivity? These are areas that we need to continue discussing. The pedagogy challenges, that is, how do we continue with the new provision of learning when we are not sure whether all the children are present in class? So these challenges, one, we must look at policy-related challenges. We must look at engagement of parents, because now parents are finding themselves in unfamiliar waters, and therefore, how do we deal with it? And above all, we must look at blending, the blend between the use of technology and at the same time incorporate the current teacher present, student present in a classroom atmosphere. For example, how do we ensure science lessons are taught? It means laboratory work must lead to presence of the students and the teacher in a given atmosphere. The other theoretical work could be done online. How do we address the challenges of overcrowded classrooms? And if you split them to take care of social distancing, where do you get the manpower? So can we have, therefore, closed circuit systems and studios in schools where a teacher can teach through a studio and the students can follow on maybe wide screens in the separated areas? These are infrastructural needs that need to be addressed. So I would say the future of education in Kenya and generally in Africa will have to be technology-based and with a blend between the current way of approach and the use of technology. Thank you very much, Tony.
Thank you very much, Alfred. So very, very big challenges in Kenya and in Africa overall with connectivity, devices, and so on. And, you know, progress is being made. So thank you for that overview and plowing ahead. Kenya's introduced a new competency-based curriculum, which is very, very promising. So our next panelist this is perfect sequence here because Samantha O'Riordan is next. Samantha is the program officer at the International Telecommunication Union, ITU. It's a United Nations agency based in Geneva. And I think, Samantha, you might be able to help Alfred out here with connectivity and so on. So Samantha, welcome to our call.
Thank you, Tony. And yes, I will probably be echoing a lot of what Alfred has just mentioned. So I work at the ITU within the Telecoms Development Bureau, which is focused on providing connectivity for those who don't have it. And just to give you some context and some figures based on research that the ITU has done, at the end of 2019, just over half the world's population was using the internet. And today, an estimated of 3.7 billion people are offline, 369 million of whom are young people. So this lack of access to the internet means that there are a large populations excluded. They don't get access to the wealth of information that's available online, have fewer resources to learn and grow, and limited opportunities, particularly for those most vulnerable, like children and youth, to fulfill their potential. And this digital divide was brought into sharp focus as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, where those families and individuals with good connectivity were able to continue to work and learn almost as normal, and those without were left further behind. We've just marked a year of school closures and basic lockdowns in various countries around the world, and more than 190 countries around the globe closed schools, resulting in 94% of learners being affected and creating the largest disruption to education in history. And this wasn't just in developing countries, but also in developed countries as well, where this was felt. But obviously, given the context and with those large groups of people who remain offline, developing countries were hit harder. So what have we been doing about it? In September 2019, GIGA was launched. This is the joint initiative between the ITU, the International Telecoms Union, and UNICEF. And our aim is to connect every school to the internet and every young person to information, opportunity, and choice. So we work on a 4-pillar approach to map, connect, finance, and empower. The first of these pillars, MAP, is focused on working with governments to map connectivity demand, identifying where schools are, and then determining their connectivity gaps. So we start by using existing government data on school locations, combined with innovative uses of technology such as machine learning and artificial intelligence. And this information is combined with the information that ITU holds in the form of broadband maps and allows countries to take stock of their existing connectivity infrastructure. And so far, GIGA has mapped over 800,000 schools in 30 countries. And just to give you some examples of why this is the first step and most important step is, if you don't know where the schools are, you can't talk about connecting them. And in Colombia, GIGA used artificial intelligence techniques to automatically map schools from satellite imagery, and was able to provide the government with the location of an additional 7,000 schools that were not part of official data sets. Another example in Kyrgyzstan is the government saves an estimated 40% of its annual education connectivity budget through identifying which schools had internet, their speeds. They were even able to identify some schools that had been connected to providers twice, and as a result, negotiate a better deal, secure better prices, and reduce their costs. So the idea of GIGA is not to provide funding, but more to act as a platform, as a convener between funding opportunities and connectivity projects for schools, primarily in disconnected areas. Under the finance pillar, GIGA works to build affordable and sustainable finance models and subsidize market creation costs and incentivize investment from the private sector. While under the Connect pillar, GIGA advises on the best possible technical solutions to provide schools with connectivities and ensure that countries are able to provide safe, secure, reliable, fit-for-purpose infrastructure for their students. And as Alfred highlighted, the actual infrastructure connectivity is very important. Today, 93% of the world's population lives in an area covered by 3G mobile coverage. However, it's not just coverage that limits people getting online, it's also a lack of skills. Under our Empower pillar, GIGA builds on the work of UNICEF's Reimagine Education and Generation Unlimited, and also ITU's work in digital skills training to connect governments with partners and appropriate digital learning content and platforms for scaling and providing educational devices and materials for children, teachers, and administrators. So currently, GIGA is working with a number of partners to help map and connect schools. And we're focused in 3 priority regions in Central Asia, Eastern Caribbean, and Central America, and Africa. In Kenya, we are working actually to connect under a pilot to 100 schools. And we have launched similar pilots in Rwanda and Kazakhstan. And I'm going to stop there because I could probably go on about more of our work, but I will hand over to my fellow participants.
Okay, thank you very much, Samantha. This is really important work. Many schools around the world are envisioning not going back to the old normal, right, of everyone in classrooms, with some kind of a hybrid situation. And, you know, this connectivity part is so important, and it can actually give you know, a great access to many students around the world. So very good coordinating work being done there. Thank you for letting us know about this good work. So let's next go to Kerstin Wilmans. Kerstin is the co-founder and executive board member of a great organization based in Germany called Global Goals Curriculum. So Kerstin, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Tony. Very pleased and appreciate being here today. I will show some pictures and I hope it works. Yes, you see the presentation very quickly. Yeah, thanks to my previous co-panelists and speakers, I don't have to cover so much, which is fantastic because there's so much going on there and out there, and we are all aiming to achieve this education for individual and societal well-being. And that's also the mission of Global Goals Curriculum. We started in 2016 and working in development projects with networks such as UNESCO schools, Double Dome schools, German education ministries. We have several because we are organized on state level, and other institutions in innovation labs and projects to develop an approach how we can develop or transform schools. And we are in the midst of, we are finishing our projects and now in the documentation phase. And I realized that we have to speed up providing all this information on our website, especially in English, and getting it translated soon. The first step we always take in our development projects is the conversation around the goals. What do we want to achieve? And to create a vision, a shared vision with all stakeholders from all the different spheres of the educational ecosystem within school, and obviously also working together with the wider school community, the school boards, and so forth. We like to use the OECD Learning Compass, which was mentioned by Lynn Paine. The thing is that these competencies, this knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values, we want students to develop, to build on their student agency in order to shape their own world and the societies they live in, is developed in co-agencies with their peers, the teachers, parents, and communities. And so that means that we don't have to just focus on the competencies of the students, but as Lynn Paine mentioned, the competencies of the teachers and our competencies, all of us working in this field, trying to transform and develop the education system. We need this transformative competencies, and we have also to step out of our comfort zone once in a while to innovate systems and to share a larger vision and to step back maybe from our own interests once in a while. I give you an overview of the system we are using, the whole system approach. At the core is the student agency and co-agency within school. And we look at the learning and teaching. So what innovative formats, learning settings do we have to develop in schools to enable the development of future skills? And one design principle in all our projects is we do that on eyes level in co-creation with students. So we're involving all the stakeholders in our projects. To enable these new learning processes and learning formats, we need obviously an adapted organization, new processes, new collaboration. We have to develop the single fighter system in so many ways in school. I'm as a teacher, I have to prepare myself and instruct my students to a co-creational system and team approach. And that is for some schools really new. And not just with teachers, also in co-creation with school board members, with students, with parents. As Lasse mentioned, that's so important to involve the parents as well. Then we have a look at creating the campus, the rooms, the learning rooms, which are supporting these new learning formats. And obviously the infrastructure, the virtual learning rooms is a bigger and bigger issue. And there we look that we create a digital infrastructure and learning processes which are, which do respect data security, which look at sustainability issues and still use all the potential of innovation in individualizing curriculum and also document the learning development of each student. And then comes, now we are still within school, the collaboration with the external sphere, with the school boards, the education ministries, policymakers, and so forth. And because every school is not an island, it is much easier to develop as a group of collaborators. So find a network of schools who are also in a development process, which makes it easier to have someone to have a conversation with. How are you doing it? Learning from it. Use resources like As100, because they have fantastic innovations out there, and best practices, and even next practices you can really use for your own development processes. This is the whole system approach, and the thing is that the core of this is co-creation. That's really the basic principle. And it means that everybody of us, we all have to step out of our comfort zone and align our initiatives in order to be able to achieve this great transformation we are looking for. And and now let's develop our co-agency and transform education. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kerstin. This is really a great map that you shared with us here today. I think it's tremendously exciting, and I think the in the Education 2030 framework, the relationship between values, guiding skills, and skills applying knowledge to solve in a collaborative way, right, to solve the pressing problems that we see around us today is really important. Thank you very much, Kerstin. Let's go to our next panelist, our final panelist today. I'd like to introduce Bashdar Mawlud. He's with the General Directorate of Education Planning with the Ministry of Education of Kurdistan in the region of Iraq. So Bashdar, welcome. We're looking forward to your remarks today.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you very much for this kind of introduction, and thank you for giving us this opportunity to really just report the context of Kurdistan region and offer a background of what we did during the worst times of the COVID-19 pandemic. The COVID-19 has resulted in the schools shut up across Kurdistan region, over 1.7 million children without a school. And at that time, when looking at various sources of information and doing lots of review, it seemed like not much information was available on the best practices in other countries, just to guide us in these rapidly changing circumstances. And there were not response standards designed for these specific situations. For example, we had INE minimum standards. As you may know, that Iraq has really just went through different crises, whether it was different crises like war against terrorism, internal conflict. So we didn't have these standard handbooks, which could really just give us key actions and guidance notes. But INE minimum standards handbook is designed to be used in crisis caused by the natural disasters, also man-made crises like conflict. And therefore, Kurdistan region, like all the other countries around the world, had to create distance learning opportunity. And distance learning is neither a new concept nor a new approach. It has been there for decades, and we had to resort to that approach because following the school closure in the 26th of February 2020, the Ministry of Education only had a month to design an e-learning platform, of course, with limited financial resources, because we have to keep in mind that Kurdistan region's economy, because we are part of Iraq, is overly dependent on oil. And during the early months of the pandemic, just like the price per barrel dropped drastically, and our region was in deep economic crisis. So with the available resources, we managed to design an e-learning platform called Iwana. So the e-learning platform is intended to enable students to continue their education and complete the academic years. The platform is designed in a way that offers testing for grades for all levels of education, and both Kurdish accents, Sorani and Ladini, in Arabic, in Turkmeni, and in the Christian language, because we are just a region where we just care about the minorities. We have curriculum printed in different languages. So this is because we can say that the Kurdistan regional government, or the Ministry of Education of Kurdistan region, is the only region in the Middle East who could really just care for the minorities in the region. And I guess that it's a good example. And then, so the platform also offers various functions, such as tracking the students' accessibility to the learning platform and learning content, materials, and support interactions of teachers with students, because we've designed a chatting we have blended or integrated a chatting app into the e-platform. So the Ministry of Education managed to make make the link free for all students through the service providers, because we have talked with the different telecommunication companies in the region, and they have agreed to really just do that. And that was a great success, because we had families who have children and they have access to the smart devices, but they could not really just access the internet. So that's why we made the access to these platforms free. So at that time, we had to really just look at different scenarios available, because we intended to reach out different stratums or different levels of society. Students from lower social backgrounds or from poor social backgrounds. So that's why we have used the education TV channel. First in Leponiemi governorate. It was local, and then we thought that the local television signals cannot be reached to the rural areas, but particularly to the villages. So that's why, in collaboration with UNICEF, we have managed to broadcast the education TV channel on the Nilesat, and therefore homes and families in the villages could really just have access into our TV channel. And then we thought that one channel cannot really cover the whole subject areas. So that's why, in collaboration with different organizations, we've managed to open up 2 different televisions in 2 different governorates, just to cover up subject matters from grade 1 to 12, particularly the on-demand subjects. And then we have also thought that there are homes who have a single television and lots of children, and then each children have different specific demands. And then we decided to open up a radio station for those families, even if we have families who don't have access or who don't have televisions at home. So that's why we intended to reach out to a lot of students in the Kurdistan region. We have used different modalities. And then we also thought about the teacher training. So how could we really just do the teacher training when the in-person teacher training is not possible? So that's why we have designed an e-learning and e-training platform, just like it's similar to Udemy. So we did a lot of other things with organization, but because of the constraints of time, because of the limited, because we have a limited time span, so that's why I need to really just stop from here. But in my belief, and also in the belief of others in the Ministry of Education of Kurdistan region, so the way to transform education is to prepare your system to respond to different settings and crises, and set up different education pathways to ensure that students continue to learn and to flourish, and also develop their skills. And just for information, right now, the Ministry of Education is currently reviewing its curriculum and also reforming some of its segments, just to make the curriculum and learning process to respond to crisis, and also to respond to the changing demands of the global market. And we have also did a learning loss study in collaboration with UNICEF, just to see how many weeks and also how many months that the students have really just lost in the pandemic, so that we can really just think of different strategies to make up for the losses. And right now we are assessing, because before the crisis, before the pandemic, we did an assessment with UNICEF, and that was a learning assessment for grade 4. So we are doing the learning assessment again, just to see the students' skills, and also in different areas right after the COVID-19, so that we can really just also lay out different strategies to respond to this crisis. Thank you very much. I'm going to hand over the floor to Tony. Thank you, Tony.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bashdar. This is like fascinating, learning about the great effort that you made in Kurdistan with challenging resources, and making sure you found ways to reach all the students. Very, very impressive. Before we go into, we do have questions ready that we received from all of you participants. I do have a representation of questions, but I think the things that were shared by our panel is so exciting. I think we might just go directly into a dialogue here, and then if we have time, we'll hit some of the questions. So I just want to open it up here. If anyone has a point that you'd like to expand on that somebody else mentioned, or you might have a question for a question to one of your fellow panelists. So we're opening it up here to anyone. Okay, Kerstin.
I think digitization is necessary. We know that. The thing is how you overcome, and I'm addressing Bashdar and Alfred, and also actually everybody, how can we secure that we don't fall into this trap on one side of digital totalitarianism, like when it comes to social scoring and so on, and on the other hand, this trap of digital capitalism, using data of students for marketing reasons and so forth. How can we ensure we digitize and still have data security and sustainability issues looked at?
Great.
I can answer that, Kerstin. So one of the works of BIT and also with UNICEF is working with countries to make sure that when we are talking about giving access to schools to children, that they have the right frameworks in place, so that there is guidelines for teachers and for children on the safe use of internet and tools, and making sure that there are necessarily laws in place as well. So frameworks are working with countries to set up child online protection practices, laws, guidance, training for teachers. Often parents, particularly as we've seen in the pandemic, parents themselves are not used to or not aware of the dangers online. So part of the work that we do is also making sure that when the connectivity is provided, it's safe learning. So we want to create an atmosphere of safe learning for children and for teachers as well, because teachers don't always have the skills, the practice of being of teaching online. And just as an example, I mean, it hit the papers, but Zoom classes being moved to Zoom and then them being bombarded or hijacked by external sources. So that's just a classic example of making people aware, and it's awareness raising on both sides. It's protecting children, but also those who are delivering the education, they also need to be aware of the risks and precautions that need to be taken.
Thank you,
So
Samantha.
I'm really glad you mentioned that, Samantha and Kerstin, about the online safety. In fact, in our next session that will start in about 12 minutes is actually on online safety. And, you know, I don't think there was enough of that as we were trying to encourage everyone to go online last year, right? I think that part needs to get really greatly shored up, and that's why we have that session coming up next. Okay, great. Alfred, go ahead.
Thank you, Tony. I just wanted to add on what my co-panelist has raised. First, what we need to understand is that the future of education must go hybrid, so that we have both ICT and the conventional way that we know. It means, therefore, that we may need a systemic shift in the way we are doing things. And we must look at the policies, because when the pandemic came and there was that shift for online learning, we did not, and I think it's world over, we did not quickly address the issues of policy that were going with it. The issues of the infrastructure needs. The students are at home, the teachers are at home. We do not have the infrastructure that would support that online learning. Number three, the human resource itself. Preparation of the teacher, they are not ready for this. Students are not ready. This has to be going on even now. Unfortunately, we seem not to be handling this in the way that it should be. Issues of classroom design when the children come back. This again is another area. Now, when it comes to safety of data that we are having, that explains why I am emphasizing on a blend, that we could have the online data, but we must also have the physical data that can be ready for use in case there is interference. The teacher capacity, that is the educator capacity building in this hybrid learning must be key. And I'm happy that from the OECD talking of teacher preparation, this is key. And as Kenya transforms into the CBC competence-based curriculum, ICT, it becomes a core delivery for the curriculum. Therefore, it means, and we are doing that now, preparing the teachers for the delivery of ICT, retooling the teacher again. There are issues like assessment that will have to be downloaded, assessed, and results uploaded to a central depository. So this again requires change in policy, because if we don't change the policy, then it will become an illegal thing, and many of us are overlooking that. As I mentioned earlier, the challenges that we faced that need to be addressed, like yesterday, is the connectivity. I know one of the presenters has talked about the connectivity. I am aware in our country, UNESCO is trying to do something, but then the uptake is not countrywide, is only in a section. So the question is, should we first face another shock in education? Are we only going to have those sections handled? What happens to the rest of the country, the less fortunate children? We saw the challenge, even the students with special needs, when learning went online, these students were completely forgotten. So they lagged behind. As we prepare these policies, as we prepare the gadgets, we must also have in mind that we have children with special needs. And how do they get that connectivity that is cheap and affordable? Because as I said earlier, the question parents were having is, will I have money to put food on the table for the children, or do I have the money to pay for internet connectivity? Then there must be increased collaboration between parents and the teachers. I think that is what I would want to say at this point in time, Tony.
Thank you very much, Alfred. Lynn, did you have your hand up to respond to that?
I was just going to, I appreciate so much both the question Kerstin asked and Alfred, and Samantha and Alfred's comments. I would just add from the OECD conversations, I want this to be seen as adding to this model that requires not only rethinking hardware, not only rethinking software, but rethinking sort of mindsets. And that includes, as Alfred said, policies that requires a different mindset. And I would argue, as Alfred suggested, we see the need to rethink, if we're thinking of teaching and learning, rethink teaching and learning as a partnership with parents. And for teachers, that may mean really recognizing the strengths that parents bring, the strengths and assets of a community. I think those shifts are harder, frankly, than getting the bandwidth, the devices. And I'm very eager to hear from this terrific panel how you think about creating solutions that don't just provide a technical solution for the moment, but the kind of framing and thinking that allows us, as Alfred said, for the next crisis, because there'll be the next crisis, and how to build resilience into our education community and into our broader communities.
I think something that we have been seeing when the education systems around the world has been adapting to the pandemic situation has been that the countries or the regions where the system has been more ready to adapt, or there have been policies in place that they can experiment and test out new solutions and practices easier, have been quicker in reacting to these challenging times. And therefore I can fully echo like what Alfred was saying about that the future of education in many locations and countries needs to be hybrid. And we are seeing that the benefit of the hybrid model in both in high and low infrastructure context at the moment, but then at the same time there is this big worry how the students at risk might be dropping out. The students with the special needs within this kind of very special time has been kind of like forgotten, or they have been just trying to struggle through these difficult months. So one of the kind of like key aspects we have been trying to address in our latest collaboration with the World Bank has been to identify not only kind of like how to improve or how to change the teacher training for the future teachers, but also how to do personal development for all those amazing teachers who are already in a profession, and how they can transform their knowledge and practices to be something that we can be using in efficient way with the online tools, with the different tools and systems we are using at the moment. And the transformation within them has been slower than with the younger teachers.
Bashdar, I'll give you the last minute here.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you. I guess that revisiting the education, rethinking education has been a debate since 2015 when the Sustainable Development Goals has been introduced, and UNESCO has published Rethinking Education. So the purpose of that, publication was to revisit the education systems in the 21st century. So I guess that in the 21st century, the ministries of education really just need to come together to really just rethink about the education systems, how we can really just best respond to the crisis. Because we've seen that during the pandemic, most of the countries, even the developing countries, had to cope with the technological challenges. Because in most of the developing countries, the online learning has not really just been that successful. And I guess that just like the World Bank said that the myth that digital learning will sometime replace the in-person classrooms, or the actual classrooms have been debunked. And when doing the blended learning, just like it's been mentioned by my colleagues in the platform,
Sorry to interject. We're running out of time so quick.
I know. That's what I've told you. But just let me just say the final words, that we need to really just set up the foundations for the blended learning. So the teacher training needs to be made. The community awareness needs to be raised. The student needs to be really just be customized to the blended learning, because we cannot really just introduce blended learning in a night. It really just take a lot of time to really just prepare for that. And I guess that the whole world needs to come together for the last time to really just think about it. And when next time another pandemic hits the world, we need to be prepared for that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bashdar. We're just running our final poll right now. Lasse, thank you also for your input there, by the way. Please participate in the final poll here. And while that's going on, I just want to share about this is an amazing conversation. I really want to thank our wonderful panel. I think we were just getting started. This is just the introduction, right? We did today. So this conversation will continue this year. And I'd like to announce the Global Peace Convention, where we will continue this conversation. It will be global. It'll be happening August 9th to 15th. This year, 2021, and we will be expanding on this whole transforming education issue, along with the peace building and other aspects as well. So save the date on this, and we'll be communicating links and so on. And now I'd like to introduce our next session, which will be starting almost right away. It will be on online safety and digital citizenship. So please look to your links for that, your Zoom links. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining this really engaging, wonderful panel today, and the wonderful contributions. Again, once again, thank you very, very much to our wonderful panel, and we'll catch you in the next session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.